This is Sarah Meixel with the Pig Site, and today we're here with Dr. Aaron Gaines and Dr. Hans Stein. Dr. Gaines is a managing partner with Anatech LLC based in Shelbina, Missouri, and Dr. Stein is a professor of nutrition at the University of Illinois in Champaign. Thank you both for being with me today. I really appreciate it. You both spoke at the Iowa Swine Day pre-conference symposium titled Soybean Meal 360, Expanding Our Horizons Through Discoveries and Field-Proven Feeding Strategies for Improving Pork Production. Your topic focused on net energy and productive energy in commercial swine systems. Dr. Stein, let's start with you. You get the first question here. What of your experiments estimated the net energy of soybean meal to be, and how do you determine these values?
Yeah, we have conducted quite a few experiments with net energy in soybean meal, and our conclusion is that the net energy in soybean meal under our circumstances is at least between 90 and 100% of the net energy in corn. And the way we determine those values, we have a couple of different models, and one of them is using indirect calorimetry, which means we put a little group of pigs into a chamber, and then we can measure the oxygen that they consume and also the carbon dioxide and the methane that they produce, and based on that we can calculate the net energy of that diet that we are feeding. So based on that we have a net energy value, and that was the first thing we did, and we realized the net energy was greater than what current book values suggest, and therefore we repeated that. We saw one more time it was greater, and then we conducted a couple of other experiments where we used different technologies. One of them was what we call the slaughter procedure, where we can directly measure in the body of the pig how much energy has been accumulated over time with different diets. And we had a different approach also where we determined the net energy based on gain to feed of pigs. And in all three of those approaches, we came to the conclusion that the net energy of the soybean meal we feed today, fed to the genotypes of pigs we have today, that net energy is close to the net energy of corn, which is quite a bit higher than current book values would suggest. So we have tried to do it in many different ways, and every time the conclusion is the same, that we have more net energy in soybean meal today.
Very good, excellent. And Dr. Gaines, let's switch over. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. When was the first observation that soybean meal net energy is greater in commercial environment?
The first observation really goes back to some work done at the Hanor Company. They were doing a confirmatory study, and what they found was that the soybean meal energy estimate was about 30% higher than one of their first studies. In their first study, they found a energy level of soybean meal that was about 82% of corn, NRC corn on a dry matter basis, which really agrees closely with Dr. Stein's laboratory. But in the confirmatory study, they found about a 30% higher level. And the differences between those studies, their first study was done under more like academic conditions.
Right.
And then the second study was done under more commercial conditions. And so that was the first observation, that soybean meal energy level was higher than what we anticipated.
And Dr. Gaines, what commercial experiments have been conducted that indicate a higher net energy estimate?
Well, there's been 5 experiments over 4 locations by 3 companies that we've been involved with and have reported on, all indicating a higher soybean meal net energy estimate. In addition, there's been some companies within the industry that have their own had their own research facilities. Right. That have also found similar estimates.
Very good. So that confirmation, in other words, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been very repeatable under commercial conditions where we're seeing this higher energy estimate for soybean meal.
Excellent. And Dr. Gaines, why do you think the energy estimate for soybean meal is higher in commercial environments?
Well, in these commercial environments, when we do these studies, they're growth assay experiments, so they're different than what Dr. Stein's measuring. We're measuring productive energy, so the amount of energy that's going toward growth. And so typically that productive energy can be accounted for through classical ingredient energetics. However, in the case of soybean meal, it's a little bit different. We can account for about 75% of the energy from soybean meal through classical ingredient energetics, and there's another 25% that's not accounted for. Okay. And our current working hypothesis is that there's energy coming from soybean meal that's being conserved for growth. And so when we think about productive energy specific to soybean meal, it's a combination of classical ingredient energetics as well as this energy that's being conserved for growth. And we know that soybean meal has some bioactive molecules in it that could be contributing to that response.
Excellent. Based on the commercial experiments, what soybean meal energy value should be used in practice?
Yeah, so we get that question a lot given all the experiments that have been conducted, and currently from a practical standpoint, on an as-fed basis, we'd be recommending 95 to 100% of corn. And I always encourage people, if you've got the ability to test it for yourself in a commercial environment, you got access to research facilities, test it and validate that estimate.
Very good. And I'm not sure which one of you I should direct this to, but I have a follow-up question. Because maybe it's for you, Dr. Stein. You said this value is different than the standard or the book value, right? What's the difference that we're talking about here?
Well, it's pretty big differences. Our current book values indicate that we have about 77 to 78% of net energy in corn in our soybean meal, and those values are based on experiments conducted more than 40 years ago. And now we are saying between 90 and 100, 95 to 100% of corn. So it's a pretty big difference. And we think at least part of that difference is simply due to the fact that the pigs have changed. We have much more efficient pigs today. They utilize protein much more efficient than the pigs we had 40 years ago. So it's not like necessarily they were wrong when they did those experiments. Right. It's just now we have different pigs, and more lean pigs, more efficient pigs, and they utilize the protein fraction of the diet much more efficient than they used to.
Excellent. Well, let's talk, Dr. Stein, just what are some of the key takeaways from your presentation for nutritionists, for folks who weren't able to attend, but what were the headlines?
Well, the main headline is that if a nutritionist has not done it yet, whether it's a nutritionist in a feed company or in a production company, they should update their net energy value for soybean meal and going from those 77, 78% that we have in the book values, and at least going up to somewhere between 90 and 100% to get a more realistic net energy value in the formulation. And if they are formulating on minimum energy values in the diets, the practical implication would be that by increasing the number they have for soybean meal, they can probably save a little bit of fat in the diet or oil in the diet, because they don't need to reach that net energy value using fat. They can do it just with the soybean meal. So that would be the practical implication.
Very good. And let's talk about from the producer side. What's the key takeaway for a producer today?
Well, under commercial conditions, it's clear from the data that the soybean meal energy value relative to corn on a dry matter basis is equal or to 10% greater. And so to Dr. Stein's point, you really need to account for that in formulation. In terms of the exact mechanism of how soybean meal is increasing, that energy value is increasing under commercial conditions, that mechanism is not fully elucidated, but currently the working hypothesis is that part of it is accounted for through classical ingredient energetics, but also there's this conservation of energy toward growth that could be explained by some of the bioactive molecules in soybean meal.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you guys both so much for this. And this is really new and kind of exciting news for the industry, it would seem. Every time we learn more, right? Knowledge is power. It really helps producers move forward, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely an area that we never considered in the past, and it was certainly something we've built off of, and we try to increase our understanding. And like I said, we don't understand the mechanism of action, and there's active work in that area to really understand what's going on with soybean meal.
Very good. Well, thank you both for all the information today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
This is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site reporting from the Iowa Swine Day Soybean Meal 360 Pre-Conference Symposium sponsored by Iowa State University and U.S. Soy.